Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the sixth solution in our solution series for the 2025 West African Senior School Certificate Examination. Uh, we've considered the first five questions in our previous videos. And if you have not watched that, you can just check this playlist and you see the solutions to the first five questions. Now, here we are about to look at the solution to the sixth question, which says in a certain year, the consumption pattern of electricity in a town was as follows. The cost of the first 30 units of electricity was charged at $1 per unit. The cost of the next 30 units was $7 per unit, and the cost of each additional unit after the first 30 is the next 30. So the cost of each additional unit was $5. So the first question is that if Amaka used 420 units of electricity in January that year, to calculate the amount she paid for the 420 units she used. Now this question is does not require you to use any formula. It's just you getting the interpretation and you go ahead with the solution. Now Amaka used 420 units, but no matter the number of units you use each month, the first 30 units will be charged at $1 for each unit. Then the next 30 will be $7 for a unit. Then subsequent units will be charged at $5 per unit. So it doesn't matter the number of units you use. This is going to be the pattern. Now for Amaka that I use 420 units. Out of the 420 units you used for the month, the first 30 units, the first 30 units, first 30 units will cost 30 multiplied by $1. And that's going to be equal to $30. So out of the 420 units that she used for the particular month, for the month of January that year, the first 30 out of the 420 will be charged at $1 per unit, and that will amount to $30. Because she used beyond 30 units, we have 420 units for that particular month of January. The next 30 units that Amaka used in the month, the next 30 units, they said will be charged at $7 per unit. So that means the next 30 units will be 30 multiplied by $7. Remember, a unit is $7. Therefore, 30 units will be 30 times 7. That will give you $210. So it means we have calculated 60 units for Amaka now. The first 30, she will have to pay $30 for it. The next 30, she will pay $210. So we've calculated for 60 units, but she used 420 units. So how many units is left? The number of units left, each unit will be calculated at $5 per unit, regardless of the number of units left. Now we've only accounted for 60 units out of the 420 units she used. So the remaining units, the remaining units will be, she used 420 units for the month, 420. We've accounted for the first 30 units. Let's remove that, minus 30. We've also accounted for the next 30 units. So we'll remove that too, minus 30. Meaning we have not accounted for 420 minus 60 units. And that's going to give us 360 units that we have not accounted for. So these 360 units will now follow the third condition. That's the cost of each additional unit after the first 60 will be charged at $5 per unit. So how much will be charged for the 360 units? Therefore, the cost of 360 units is going to be equal to, since they said a unit is going to be $5, so 360 units will be 360 multiplied by $5. That's going to be equal to this is 5.00, don't make mistake, and that will be $1,800 if I don't make mistake, $1,800. So meaning the 360 units we have not accounted for will now cost $1,800. So the first 30 units is $30, the next 30, which makes it 60, with $210, then the remaining 360 will be $1,800. So what is the total amount paid by Amaka for the month? So the total amount paid for the 420 units would then be equals to the cost of the first 30 units, which is $30, plus the cost of the next 30 units, which is $210, plus the cost of the last 30 360 units, which is 1800, sorry, $1,800, and that will give you total consumption by Amaka to be that should be $2,040. $2,040. So it means for the month of January, Amaka will have to pay $2,040 for the 420 unit of electricity she used. And with that, we've calculated, we've solved the first question. Then that's question A. Then moving to question B. Moving to question B. Now, for the second question, as I said, uh, we were told that if Amaka paid $2,740 in the month of February, we have to calculate the number of units used. So this is just opposite of what we did in the first question. In the first question, we were given the number of units. It was our duty to calculate the amounts that is to be paid. But this time, we've been given the amounts. We want to know the number of units that Amaka consumed that made her to pay $2,740 dollars for the month of February. Now, remember, we've already mentioned it here that regardless of the number of units Amaka consumed in the month, our first 30 units, the first 30 units will still be charged at $30. I think we did that here. So $30. So meaning out of this 2,740 that we have here, the first 30 units is accounting for $30 out of it. Then the next 30, as we considered in question A, the next 30 units will be, that's 30 times 7. The same thing we did in the first question, that will be 210. So the next 30 units will be 210. So out of these 2,740 she spent for the month of February, the first 60 units, that's addition of these two, will amount to $240. It means the remaining units will cost don't mind my English will cost equals to, that does not really make sense, but don't worry about that. So the remaining units will cost, since she consumed 2,740 for the month, $2,740 for the month, I will said the first 30 will be $30. So we'll remove the first $30 minus the next 30, which makes it to be 60, will cost $210. $210. So when you subtract this, that will give you the amounts that will be paid at this third rate. Remember, we've accounted for the first rate, that was what gave us the first $30. We've accounted for the second rate, that was what gave us the $210. Now I want to account for how many units does she pay for. Did she pay for at the rate of $5 per unit? So that's what we want to calculate now. So the amount she paid at the rate of $5 per unit will be equal to 2,740 minus 30 minus 210, and that will give us $2,500. So what that simply implies is that out of the 2,740, she paid $30 for the first unit. That is the first 30 we removed here. She paid $210 for the next 30. That is the 210 we removed here. Now, how many units will you have in this $2,500? Remember, this $2,500 will be at the rate of $5 per unit. So the number of units that cost $2,500 will be equal to 2,500 divided by 5. It is like saying it's like saying a book costs 5 naira. Then they ask you how many book will you buy for 2,500 naira. So that would be 2,500 over 5. So same thing here. Since we are considering this third condition now, and we said the total number of units, the total number of amount of money that she spent at the rate of $5 per unit is $2,500. Therefore, the number of units is going to be 2,500 divided by 5. That will be 500 units. So it is glaring that if she pays $5 for 1 unit and for 500 units, that's going to be $2,500 dollars. Therefore, we can now know the amount, the number of units she consumed for 2,740. So total number of units, total number of units is then going to be equals to, now the first 30 units, that was this $30 we have here. So 30 units plus the next 30 units, that was this two $10 we have here, plus 30 plus then $2,500 we have here. We said it is for what? 500 units plus 500, and that's going to give us how many units? 560 units. So it means in the month of February, Amaka consumed 560 units of electricity. So to the last question, we have to find correct to two decimal places the percentage change in units of electricity consumed by Hamaka in January and in February. So this is something very straightforward. In January, we were told that she consumed 420 units of electricity. And in February, we already calculated that she consumed 560 units. So we want to know the percentage change from 420 units to 560 units. So for question C, so the change in number of units is going to be equals to change in number of units to be in February she consumed 560 units, 560 minus in January she consumed 420 units minus 420, and that is going to give us 140 units. So therefore the difference in units, that's an increment from January to February of 140 units. So percentage change as we asked in the question would then be equal to the change in number of units, that's 140 over the number of units she consumed in January. Now, when something increases, say for instance, the cost of a particular material increases from 1,000 to 2,000, or let me say from 1,000 to 1,200, then they ask you for the percentage change. That is going to be the difference in the amount is 200 from 1,000 to 1,200. So that will be 200 over the initial amount, that is over 1,000. So same thing happens here. The change in units from January to February is 140 over the initial units, that is the number of units for January, which is 420. Because it is percentage, you have times 100%. If you were told to calculate just the fraction, we would have add just 140 over 420. But here they said percentage. So that's what we are going to have here. And when you compute this, you are going to have 33.33%. Remember they said to two decimal places, and that is what I've done here. So if you don't approximate to the correct uh, level of accuracy they ask in the question, you will not be given the answer mark. So it is always important that you take note of the degree of approximation that is required in the question. Here we have two decimal places, and that is what we have here. And you see how simple the number 6 question is. It doesn't require you to cram any formula. You don't need to know any formula. It's something that is very straightforward. Just a little bit of mathematics and you're done. And with that, you have your 12 marks. You have your 12 marks. So if I don't make mistake, that should be 12 marks. Yep. So thank you very much. We'll meet in the next question.